And welcome, everybody, to the Monday edition of the Just Parlays show here at the Max Wagers Network. It is currently Monday, August 1st. Time flies. Can't believe we're in the 8th month of the year. But I'm joined, since it's a parlay show, of course, by the parlay expert, Chris King. First of all, Chris, how's your weekend? How's it going with you?
I can't complain. I mean, we saw some weird things happen over the weekend. Julio Rodriguez got hurt, so they bring in, Arnoldo Toro to pinch hit in the ninth, and they beat Houston.
Yeah.
That was disheartening.
What percentage of the injury blame do you put on the home run derby?
I think you got to put a good amount on it. I mean, he had been fine before that, as far as anybody knows. But we've talked about that before with other guys. You get into this thing where you're trying to crank 45-mile-an-hour pitches that you could get from a pitching machine, and you're putting a lot of strain on your body, and
You also
especially
gotta keep
how many rounds there were.
I was going to say, the rounds is the key part, because it's basically just a sped-up batting practice. But when you keep in mind how many swings the average batter takes in batting practice, not even aiming for home runs, the body might not be fully accustomed to basically doing a triple-decker batting practice session. Is that what it basically
exactly
is?
Yeah, basically. And it's going to catch up to him. We'll see if Jerry DiPoto pulls something out of his hat to try and get a hitter in that lineup, or if they're going to hope that Mitch Haniger can come back and do something, because he's played, 9 games this year?
Yeah, he's played 9 games. Maybe they'll call up Seager out of retirement. We'll see what happens. But Seattle did make waves, though, during the weekend by trading for Luis Castillo, though, which I thought was a very nice acquisition for them. If you plug in the trade to the actual trade calculator, the value calculator, it says
what the hell are you doing?
I was going to say, it says the Reds are basically having a parade right now because they ripped off Seattle. But then again, it is baseball, and you never know which prospects are going to fully pan out or not. We know for certain that Castillo is very good, and he could push Seattle over the top, at least maybe past the wild card round. So any thoughts that you had on that trade? I know we had a couple more trades today leading up to the trade deadline. But for the most part, I feel like the Soto one's the main one. You have any main takeaways?
I think you're right. I think Castillo going to Seattle helps bolster that rotation, because now you've got him, and you've got Ray, and you've got Flexen, and you've got Logan Gilbert.
Yeah.
And, then you can, if you want, you can make Kirby into the long guy, because, he's thrown close to 100 innings, and that's more than he threw last year. But they still need to be more consistent at the plate. The big trade that we were talking about just before the show started, I don't understand Josh Hader getting traded. I know Devin Williams has pitched well, but do you like the return that Milwaukee got out of this?
So one of the perks of being a former Wisconsin Badger was the fact that I ended up having a bunch of friends who actually root for the Brewers. So I was actually able to get some fan feedback regarding the trade. And it seemed like, for the most part, they were relatively okay with it. Now, Hader, of course, had a brutal month, and I wonder how much that impacted his actual trade market, but they still got a decent amount of pieces for him. The problem with Milwaukee is I don't know the direction of the team, because you're being gifted a division with 3 terrible teams. It's basically you and St. Louis, and we were assuming if Milwaukee did not trade everybody, and assuming the Cardinals did not get Soto, Milwaukee would probably win the division. Can we say that?
Yeah.
So you're turning down basically a free spot at the playoffs to trade a closer who's under contract for next year. He's a free agent in 2023, I believe, after 2023.
Right.
And you got back a reliever in Rogers who's been a mess for the last month. You got back a couple of prospects with Ruiz, who I think is an okay prospect, bit of a speedster there. I'm not sure how good he's going to be at the next level. And Lamet, who is I don't even know how to describe him at this point, because I like the talent there, but, I mean, what is it? Is it Kerry Wood syndrome? Like, he can't stay healthy. I don't know really how to describe what positives you expect to get out of him.
Lamet is basically the major league version of Henry Rowan-Gardner from Rookie of the Year. He could throw really hard for a while, and then all of a sudden the tendons in his arm snapped again, and then he had to throw that eephus pitch to the guy from the Mets.
I don't know why they didn't intentionally walk him, by the way, because they intentionally walked like the first 2 guys in the inning. They could
Right.
have just walked the guy, but that's a little bit of a flaw in an otherwise perfect movie, but just throwing it out there.
Well, and that's just like Major League 2 when Parkman's in the on deck circle, and like, well, Beck's the hitter now. I'll walk him.
I'm going to intentionally walk him. It's like calling another pitcher, But
yeah, and they're
whatever.
like, Parkman hitting just a little better than 900 in his career against Vaughn.
Yeah.
Apparently, Taylor's thinking,
I don't know
what the hell he's thinking.
Pretty much, but it seems like Milwaukee fans realized that even though this team was going to make the playoffs, it was going to be another relatively short October run. And I feel like they decided to start, preparing for the future. I don't know if I fully agree with the move. The principle of it, I can somewhat understand. But your division is so bad that I feel like you should really be trying to capitalize on this opportunity where you're basically being handed a free playoff spot.
Yeah, I mean, you should capitalize on it. Like you said, this division isn't going to stay down forever, and you need to take advantage of the opportunities when you have them. Like Tim said, the Brewers are confusing, and like you said, the same thing. You don't know what to make out of this team. You don't know what to make out of the front office. You don't know. They're supposed to get Freddie Peralta back this week, which will help their rotation.
Peralta's a big piece for a potential second or third, probably game 3 starter, because you'd have, of course, Burns and Woodruff. I'm assuming Peralta would go 3, but with that top 3, you're telling me you couldn't maybe sneak past the NLDS?
Well, exactly, and that's why I don't get why you punt on Hader. I mean, yeah, like you said, he had a rough July. I just looked at his numbers. 1-3, his ERA was 12.54.
Yeah, well, his ERA was about 72 in that one game against the Giants.
Right, he gave up 13 runs in 9 1/3 innings, including 5 homers. He had given up 2 in the first 3 months of the season.
Now, it is possible that Milwaukee's, I'd say, maybe injury staff or medical staff checked out the arm and maybe saw some concerns moving forward. So potentially that would explain why they were willing to ship Hader, who was unhittable for about the first, 2-3 months of the season.
Yeah.
But maybe there's some underlying arm issues, and the Brewers medical staff got ahead of it and apparently decided that it wasn't worth their time. But Hader, if you look past that Giants out, 1 out, 6 runs allowed outing, he's pitched 4 innings, gave up 1 run. He had 2+ strikeouts in 3 of those 4 outings. He looked like he got back on track.
Yeah, and, he's still 20. He'll be 28.
Yeah.
Rogers is going to be 32 in December.
Rogers is a full-on punt. So that's why I don't really understand that part of it. I think if you were going to replace Rogers for another prospect, like a top 10 prospect in their, I'd say, farm system, maybe I can understand that because at least you're trying to get younger entirely, and you might want to, focus on future endeavors. But trading your current closer for a current closer who's significantly worse than your own, I know there's prospects thrown in there, but you really couldn't have asked for another prospect. I feel like the Padres were trying to give Rogers away.
Yeah, I mean, you couldn't have found anybody else in the system. I mean, I know that AJ Preller doesn't want to deal away some of the top guys in the system, which
doesn't have to be a top guy, but I think we could agree even 10. I'd say an 11 to 15 prospect for San Diego is probably more valuable than Rogers right now, right?
Pretty much. I would probably take a head of lettuce over Rogers because, like you said, last month, in the month of July, Rogers went and posted an ERA better than 9 himself, 9.31, gave up 10 runs on 17 hits in 9 2/3. And you're looking here, and he hasn't been great the last couple months, period. But, he's been getting smacked around. I mean, opposing hitters batted .378 against him.
Yeah, the way that I'll grade it, if I was grading the trade, I'd give the Padres a B+ as of right now because I'm still not sure if Hader has some issues moving forward. But the Padres are buying now. They want to win a title. They might also potentially get Soto. I don't think they will. I actually don't think Soto's going to get dealt at the deadline, but we'll see. But the point is San Diego's tired of being mediocre. They had that one series win in the COVID year, and that's basically all they have to show for it for the last, I don't even know, 20-something years, like 30-something years.
Yeah.
Like, it's been a rough time. So San Diego has been investing in a lot of guys for the last couple of years. They're getting Tatis back. They decided to go all in now. I respect it. I'll give them a B+ because I'm still not sure how good the prospects are going to turn out, and I'm not sure.
Can you give the Brewers any better than a C?
No, I was going to give the Brewers a C because it just seems uninspired, and I feel like they could have potentially gotten more. You could argue the Padres got an A or an A minus, but I do have some questions about Hader's arm from what we've seen recently. So it's the only reason why I'm kind of downgrading it. But the Padres clearly won this trade.
Yeah.
I mean, I feel like we can make an argument about the Castillo trade and say the Reds probably won it because they were going to be awful anyway, and they got a bunch of very good prospects in return. I don't know what Milwaukee got. They got what, like 1.5 good prospects and an awful closer?
Yeah, and a 30-year-old guy who can't stay healthy.
Yeah, and an uncertain, wild card in Lamet. Like, I feel like you could have gotten more for when he's on a top 2 closer in the league.
Right.
So that's kind of my takeaway. But as for the other trades, I know that our teams actually made a trade. You traded a reliever to the Yankees. We got a Scott on the team, which I'm happy about for the Yankees.
Yeah, Efros has pitched pretty well. I mean, those side armors can really make things difficult for opposing hitters, and he doesn't walk a lot of guys. And plus, now he's under team control until 2027. So, I mean, you got a guy for an extended period that's going to be relatively cheap.
Yeah, by the way, Eric, I'm not avoiding you in the comment section. You're just asking about games, and we haven't gone through any of the games yet, so I can't really skip the formatting of the show. But
AJ, just to hit AJ's question, I think it's probably going to be Devin Williams closing. Wouldn't you put him in there over Rogers? I mean, he's got 30 consecutive scoreless innings.
Rogers is going to be like the 7th or 8th inning guy.
Yeah, so Williams is going to be the closer.
Williams is going to close.
Yeah.
I mean, as long as he doesn't punch something in the locker room, he'll be the closer for the rest of the season. But we do have to pivot to a more serious topic in the NFL because even during the, I'd say, trade deadline couple days leading up to it, the NFL still manages to take some headlines because Deshaun Watson had his initial sentence recommendation by a judge, which was turned out to be about 6 games. Of course, the NFL could do their own thing and add a couple games here and there. You might see a lawsuit between the PA and the NFL. But Watson got 6 games. And I know it's difficult to compare leagues because everyone has their own independent investigation. And, of course, not every case is the same. But Watson got 6 games, and Bauer got over 300.
Yeah.
Yeah, we got to talk about this. So, any initial takeaways? Do you think 6 is right? Do you think it's a joke? Do you side more towards the way the MLB handled the sexual assault issues with one of its players? Or do you side with the NFL?
I don't side with MLB because MLB suspended a guy for an extended period, A, before they did the investigation, and then B, after the investigation said that he didn't do anything wrong necessarily.
Yeah.
So by the time Bauer's suspension is over, his contract that he signed is over. So he'll have been out of baseball for what? Almost 3 years by the time that deal.
Much 3 years.
By the time that suspension is over.
Yeah. Last year, yeah.
Watson, I think if it stands at 6 games, he should consider himself fortunate.
That's one way to put it.
I know we've seen a lot of people talk about, well, the longer suspensions were for multiple domestic violence charges or, something like that with Kareem Hunt was an example. Jaron Jones was an example. Mark Walton was another example. Multiple instances of domestic violence and all that. Still, you're talking about a guy that had more than 25 lawsuits filed against him. And, had they dug deeper into it, you have to wonder if Watson was not a member of the Houston Texans at that point in time when that case was tried and listened to by a grand jury, would the suspension have changed now that he's gone to Cleveland?
I feel like it's worth talking about from the perspective of we just got to throw the number out there again. It's 25. This isn't one he said, she said type of thing. 25? Like, that's a full-on cover-up operation by the Texans and potentially the Browns, most of the Texans, because they're handing out NDAs for scheduled massages. I don't know if you could find a bigger red flag than the organization telling the masseuse when they show up to the place, by the way, you got to keep your mouth shut. Here's a piece of paper. That's probably a red flag. Just throwing it out there. But I feel like it's really just sad. And I get that sports, of course, are going to pay all the bills. They're going to make all the money and everything, and that's really all that matters. But I've mentioned it when it came to Antonio Brown. I mentioned it when it came to other athletes. Athlete worship is one of the weirdest things we have in our culture, and I genuinely don't get it. It seems like athletes, it's not even seems, just a fact. Athletes are able to get away with more than the average human being solely because they're athletic.
True.
Isn't that weird?
I mean, it is, but unfortunately, it's like you said, it's basically the way of the world now, where everybody looks up and there's so much adulation for these people for what they can do on the gridiron or on the diamond or on the court or anything else. The one place that you don't see it as much is in hockey. Nobody cares if you're a hockey player.
Well, hockey was a disaster, too, because of the beach incident with Chicago.
True.
So every sport's had some type of cover-up operation or something that's been kept on the hush-hush, but it's...
But you notice how swiftly the NHL dealt with it after it came out, though. Quenneville was gone. Half of the Chicago front office magically was fired.
It also didn't help that the allegations and the actual cup run was, 4 years prior?
Right.
I mean, it's a bad look no matter how you slice it. But I mentioned how athlete worship, I think, is one of the weirdest things in sports. Just because you're good at an actual sport doesn't mean that, A, you should be admired by other people, and B, doesn't mean you should get special treatment from the justice system. I think that that's extremely weird. And I'm a sports fan. But I don't know how you can suspend. I get the idea with integrity of the sport, which is really hypocritical, but you're going to give Calvin Ridley a year. You're going to give a bunch of people previously with weed about a year or so. You're going to give Brady about 4 games for allegedly deflating footballs, which was kind of disproved. And for 25 alleged sexual assault victims, you're going to give Watson 6 games. Really? Integrity? Like, that's the word you're going to use for the Ridley incident? Like, I know that you want to talk. I know a lot of people want to talk about the actual gambling side of it and to go through the actual bets. And a lot of us are fans. We're going to watch it anyway. But it's worth talking about because the actual I'd say, humanity of sports is non-existent. And I feel like it's worth definitely talking about from that perspective. But honestly, I'm going to ask some people in the comment section. I saw Erica was here. Maybe some other people are also around. If you're a female fan of sports and you like the NFL, why would you still be following the NFL? Because they clearly don't care about your interest. Do you think the NFL is going to lose female fans? Like, I'm thinking about reporters. Like, you have Mina Kimes, you have a bunch of other people for ESPN. I get they're getting paid. But wouldn't it be like extremely uncomfortable for you to cover a sport where the league just genuinely dismisses all female concerns? We saw it with the Watson allegation. We saw it with the cover-up of the Snyder incident with the photo shoot with the cheerleaders. When it comes to the NFL, they don't care about
the Jerry Jones incident either.
The Jerry Jones incident too. When it comes to the safety of women, the NFL doesn't care. So I don't know why females should continue to be a fan of the league. Is that a bit harsh, or am I onto something? Because I don't get it.
I don't think it's necessarily harsh. I think that it is a valid point. I think you're going to see some of that change going forward because, I mean, I've seen a lot of people that have expressed their discontent with the way that this whole situation has gone down. I've seen a lot of female fans bail on the Browns because of their involvement in this situation, talking about how they want to
For the record, you should also bail on the Texans. Just throwing it out there.
Well, most people probably weren't rooting for the Texans in the first place.
Just saying in general, if you're going to throw the Browns under the bus from a fandom perspective, you got to do it with the Texans because they were the ones who facilitated the NDA signings.
True. I mean, that is a valid point. But I think that you're going to see that happen because there's going to be people that are disconcerted, and rightfully so. I mean, this obviously has been poorly handled from day one. And this end result, barring an appeal by the league itself, where then Goodell can hand down or an appointed designee, also known as Dodger Woodell, can hand down an extended judgment on it. But other than that, it's been poorly handled since day one.
Yeah, it really has been for most of these incidents because the NFL and really most leagues have some type of boys club with the owners. and they'll vouch for each other. They'll make sure that there's a massive cover-up so nobody ever gets seriously in trouble. The truth is, if we didn't have a video recording of Donald Sterling, he probably would still be the owner right now.
Good old Don Sterling.
Just saying, can we say that? If it wasn't like released on a tape, kind of like a Mel Gibson situation, I don't think Sterling would have been forced out. And that's a really, really big problem in sports. There's no accountability for any of the owners because the leagues, since they're billionaires, are built to protect them. That's what that's what the commissioner's job is. I mean,
the only one that you've seen forced out really was Jerry Richardson in Carolina.
Yeah, and I mentioned the Sterling one because they didn't have a choice at that point. But do I think if there was no recording, do I think Sterling still would have been forced out?
Probably not.
I actually don't think so. And that's a serious problem.
Agreed. But, I mean, and that's the big issue is, and it points to the fact of how technology has evolved because everywhere you go, there's somebody with a cell phone or, something else recording it. So, I mean, you have to think before you verbally engage or just, have verbal diarrhea with like some of these guys do. And it catches up to you. And that's why Sterling, like you said, that's why Steve Ballmer owns the Clippers.
Yeah, and also before Watson was even settling cases, $230 million all guaranteed.
Right, and that's a whole other
massive
ball of wax.
Slap in the face.
And the bigger slap in the face, too, is he'll miss 6 game checks as it stands right now, but those game checks are only $57,500 each. And I know people are sitting here saying, what do you mean only $57,000? Well, you have to remember his base salary this year is just over $1 million. Yeah. As opposed to next season when it'll be $46 million.
Yeah, and it's also worth talking about if you want to bet on Cleveland, if you want to turn this into a gambling spin, Cleveland does have the easiest strength of schedule for the first 6 weeks. So this really just feels fundamentally wrong. And even if you think Watson didn't do anything, you could still be a Watson truther and you think that he shouldn't, get a strong punishment. I think we can agree based on the precedent that's been set in the past and what we've seen other athletes who weren't formally charged with anything get 6 games, 25 women, you should be getting more.
Yeah.
So I think that's at least, I think we can agree on that, even if you think Watson didn't do it. But I think it's time to pivot, talking about some of the actual games today. But before we do that, we're going to quickly talk about our sponsor for the show, which is BetMGM, and they still have a great deal for you for all first-time users of their app or website. Yeah, of their app or website. Get a risk-free bet up to $1,000. All the information is in the show box. Check the age limits, and as always, bet responsibly. So, Chris, I'm going to hand it over to you. What do you like on the baseball card today?
Well, let me tell you, it's an ugly card when you get right down to it because there's only 10 games, and last I checked, Minnesota still hadn't announced a starting pitcher. I know it was supposed to be Archer's slot. I like Scooball there anyway, just because I can't trust Archer if he does pitch. But, yeah, they're still listing Minnesota as TBD. So it could be Archer, could be Devin Smeltzer.
Is TBD better than Archer?
I bet you could probably get 5 innings out of TBD. You can't get that out of Archer.
Yeah.
I looked. He's recorded 0 outs in the 6th inning this season.
By the way, good call by Bill McDonald. Also, rest in peace to Bill Russell.
Yes, that's true.
Forgot to mention that. Thanks, Bill. Forgot about that.
Bill Russell, obviously an icon in the world of professional basketball and in civil rights too, because I mean he did a lot after his career was over.
Yeah, and he's definitely not going to be viewed as the greatest NBA player of all time, but he's definitely the greatest winner in NBA history, and that's still a pretty good thing to be known for.
Yeah, kind of hard to argue with a guy that won 11 titles in 13 years, 8 in a row, and went to the finals 12 times.
I believe he was in, 15 winner go home games, and he was like 15-0 or something.
Something like
21-0. Like he never lost a winner go home game.
Yeah, I mean, and they had a really good team back then. You know, Tom Heinsohn and of course Kuzi and Havlicek. And
if you want to go based on Hall of Famers, it's the best team of all time because basically
Sam Jones.
The entire roster basically made the Hall of Fame. But still, anyway, thanks for bringing that up, Bill. I did forget to mention that. But anyway, you want to talk about the first game that you like?
Yeah, how about we talk about the Astros and the Red Sox? Because can anybody really like the Boston Red Sox right now?
I don't even know if Boston fans like the Red Sox now. You can argue J.D. Martinez likes the Red Sox because he might get shipped off to a playoff team.
Yeah, the Red Sox still below 500. They did beat Milwaukee yesterday to salvage something. But now you got to go to Houston. I mean, let's face it, Boston was 8-19 in the month of July and got outscored by roughly 652 runs.
Yep.
You know, it's
about 500 were in 3 games.
Yeah, exactly. Your good buddy Eovaldi's pitching tonight, Scott. He's going against Luis Garcia.
I can't believe Eovaldi hasn't been like put on the mystery IL or something. He was actually okay, I guess, in his last start, but this past month, usually that's where you end up with the random nagging arm injury, which doesn't exist, and you just start working on mechanics.
Yeah, I'm just going to take a look here. Let's see that in his last. No, he wasn't even really good in his last start because he pitched against Cleveland.
I was going to say, he wasn't. I thought he had to start after that.
No, he pitched against Cleveland on Wednesday.
Wait, how did he do in that one?
5 runs, 4 earned on 9 hits in 6 innings, no walks, struck out 1.
Okay, so he went 6 innings. Okay, I mean, compared to the previous few starts, it's actually an improvement, but he wasn't good.
True. I mean, you look here, and his last 3 starts, he's given up 17 runs over 13 innings.
Yeah. I like Houston on the run one.
Yeah, me too. And I have to wonder, has Eovaldi lost velocity? Because you watch his strikeout totals. He struck out 11 against the Mariners on May 22nd. Since then, 6, 8, 5. Then he went on the IL.
Yeah.
And his 3 starts since coming back, he's only fanned a total of 8 guys.
It's I think it could be a mix because on one hand, you could argue that he's still trying to work some things out since coming back from the IL with mechanics. On the other hand, it's tough to strike out many batters when you're constantly getting shelled in the first 3 innings.
Yeah. And to your point, his ERA went from, it was 3.16 when he went on the shelf.
He was good, and now his ERA feels like 45.
It's 4.43. I don't have faith in a guy that pitched in a game where they gave up 28 runs.
When it comes to fading pitchers based on current form, there's some pitchers you can blindly fade the entire season, like Adon, Bruce Zimmerman, Keuchel, of course. But there are other pitchers that just enter a downswing, and you could fade them in the short term for a month or two. Eovaldi's been a slam dunk fade for the last month. And until he shows me something, I'm going to keep fading him. Yeah,
I mean, the one thing you can say is Boston still has some offense, but it doesn't really matter when you're giving up 400 runs a game. Mm-hmm. Houston, middle of the road offensively, but hey, they got Jordan Alvarez back, and they've got Altuve, and they've got the rest of those guys. Bregman's not going to hit 230 or 240 forever.
No, at some point you're expecting him to at least catch fire for a month, so we'll see what happens there. Of course, Jordan is still inhuman. He's just a lunatic. And the team's still been very good. Pena's been a solid rookie. The fielding numbers are terrible, but he's decent at the plate. McCormick, I think, is actually pretty good. They got pieces, and we might see Houston trade for a person or two. There's rumors they might go after Christian Vasquez. Their main position of need is catcher, so it wouldn't surprise me if they do make a move like that.
Well, I know they were linked to Contreras, too, with all those young arms they have that are controllable. They can actually flip a pitcher or two. Yeah, but I'll tell you the one guy that nobody wants, and that's Jake Odorizzi.
Oh, yeah, that's definitely true. Odorizzi's been a guy who has been okay when healthy, but he seems to always get hurt, and he seems to be victimized by a couple blow-up starts every now and then. And we've seen a couple of those recently.
And he sucked in 3 straight starts against the A's.
Yeah.
A's. We're not talking about a major league lineup here. We're talking about the A's.
Well, the A's cashed me a team total against Lance Lynn on Friday, so they're in my good graces right now.
Yeah, but the team total was 3.
Yeah, that is true. That's why I took it.
You didn't set a high bar there.
I didn't set a high bar, but they scored 7.
Well, the sun shines on a dog's ass some days.
Yeah, I mean, that's why I took it. I was hoping for sun.
But yeah, Boston has been terrible. Houston 39-16 in their last 55 against a right-handed starter. We just talked about how bad Eovaldi's been. Luis Garcia, he's got an ERA under 4.
He's got a weird delivery, but it works for the most part.
Hey, it worked for Dennis Eckersley, too.
It did. And Houston's one of the best home teams in the league. I mean, Minute Maid is just a perfect park for them. And Boston should potentially get shelled. It wouldn't surprise me, especially if they start blowing the team up. But Devers is still injured. We're assuming Martinez might not play because they want to keep him healthy for trade bait. I'm
But
curious
apparently
what's
they're
gonna
not going to trade Bogarts, which I'm surprised.
I guess you got to have them show up at the stadium for some reason. They need somebody to put on the billboards.
You mean that they're not going to just show up for lobster rolls and stuff?
No, I mean, I guess you can argue that Boston should be trading everybody, but I can't say I'm fully surprised. I think they should. I expect Martinez to be gone,
Yeah, I mean, he's getting paid a lot of money to not hit
and he
for power.
also literally cannot play the field.
This is true.
So
he's basically a pylon.
Yeah.
All right, let's move on to the next one. How about the White Sox and the Royals? I know Steen's really excited to see the Kansas City's only 22 games below 500 at this point of the season.
They beat the Yankees yesterday. Still pissed off about it, but they beat.
Yeah, that's another thing. I'm wondering if the league has figured out that if you wait long enough, Clay Holmes will just walk or hit people.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of relievers like that. I mentioned that about Edwin Diaz. Not this past year, he's been great, but in previous years, Chapman was another great example. If you just don't swing, you're probably going to get walked. I said that about Familia for like 4 years, and then people.
Yeah, but
realized,
and it turned out that he actually wasn't DFA'd. That was somebody putting that up on Twitter.
No, he should have been DFA.
He should have been, but he wasn't.
But the point is, there's a lot of relievers out there that just have a hard time finding the zone.
Yeah, it's Brad Keller, another guy that doesn't strike a lot of guys out. Facing Michael Kopech, who, with the stuff that he has, he should have a lot more strikeouts.
Yeah, I don't get that. He never strikes anybody out, but you look at the radar gun, you look at the pitch speeds. He has a lot of.
It's like 603 miles an hour.
Yeah, and yet he just strikes out like 4 a game, 5 a game. I don't really get it, but whatever.
Yeah, I can't figure it out either, because you would think with the stuff he has, I guess part of it's control. He's got to still figure out. He's got to quit nibbling sometimes. If you can throw the ball, 101, 102 miles an hour.
Yeah.
If you put it in a spot, they're not going to hit it anyway.
It's a great price for Chicago. I feel like one silver lining of the Yankees losing to the Royals, at least for me, was the fact that now Kansas City's not going to be blindly like plus 180 every game because they beat the Yankees one time. That was an atrocious series by Kansas City, especially by the bullpen. They should have won probably 3 of those 4 games. And the one game they won, they should have lost. But this Kansas City team is so brutal. In Chicago, we've roasted La Russa, rightfully so. They've underachieved all year long. But minus 154, that's a pretty nice price.
And plus, you think about it, we've roasted them all year long, and you look in the standings, and they're 2 games out of first place.
Yeah, because the AL Central is a joke. But the point is the White Sox on paper are still a talented team. And the Royals on paper, they did get Perez back, who had the big 3-run homer yesterday. But he still can't really move, and I question how healthy he truly is. Merrifield has been meh this season. Yep. I mean, they really don't have much other talent.
They got Bobby Witt Jr., but that's...
He got hit by a pitch yesterday. He got pulled. I don't know if he's going to play today.
True.
So, yeah, I think the White Sox should be closer to minus 170, like minus 180.
Yeah, and, I just don't have any faith in a Royals team that has struggles. They got blanked 3 straight times last week, including by Jansen Junk.
And their bullpen's a disaster.
Yeah, outside of Barlow, that bullpen is horrible.
Even Barlow's been a mess for the last week and change. There's nothing to like about this Royals team besides Perez occasionally going yard.
Yeah, that's it. That about sums it up.
Yeah, so I'll go with the White Sox.
So, in case you're listening, Steen, nobody likes the Royals.
I'm sure Steen's made a lot of money fading the Royals as well. So I'm sure
this is also true. So we'll move on to the 2 for the money segment. There's the Astros. We just talked about them. I'm going to go with the Guardians over the Diamondbacks. Scott, the pitching matchup, Cal Quantrill going against Zach Davies, who hasn't pitched in about 6 weeks.
I forgot about that guy.
Yeah, you know who else I forgot about him? Everybody else, because he's terrible.
Yeah, I faded him for a decent portion of the year. I remember I made money early on, and then he was actually mediocre, and then he immediately got hurt. He had like 2 or 3 decent starts in a row, and it just, all right, time for you to hit the IL for a little bit. But I've never been a Davies guy. It's very difficult in today's baseball especially to succeed when your fastball is basically 91 miles an hour.
Yeah, and the fact that, he has no control to speak of.
The walks are a huge concern, but if you don't even have the firepower to blow past hitters, it's going to be rough, especially in the home run era.
Yeah. I mean, you look and he's only given up 10 homers in 80 innings, but he still walked 26 guys.
Yeah, which means if
And
he's giving up homers, there tends to be guys on base.
yeah, and I watched him pitch last year in Wrigley, and God, he was awful.
Those are rough.
75 walks, 114 strikeouts. His ERA was over 5 3/4.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's basically what you expect out of Zach Davies is crap.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, they're playing in Cleveland. You know, the Guardians are only one game behind the Twins. Quantrill, for some reason, you know, for all the times we talked about the last couple of weeks about how Cleveland doesn't score runs when Plesac pitches, for some reason they score runs when Quantrill pitches.
Yep.
And you look at his average run support is 5.51 runs a game.
Yeah, and Quantrill 7-5. I mean, his ERA is below 4. He's been decent, but I feel like if you just want to talk about principle, Cleveland is good at home, 25-19. Arizona's awful on the road. What else is new? And Davies hasn't pitched in a couple months. So if you want to even pull the initial IL or post-IL fade, it's a very good spot.
Yeah, and you look at Quantrill's gotten at least 6 runs of support in 10 starts this season. That's just ridiculous.
I think if you want a prop tonight, I don't mind either Ramirez or maybe even Reyes homering. I can see Davies giving up a couple of bombs.
It wouldn't surprise me.
Yeah.
What do you think of this price for the Dodgers, Scott? I mean, I know Logan Webb's pitching at Oracle Park, and everybody's like, well, they took 3 or 4 from the Cubs. Well, they didn't look all that good offensively yesterday. They didn't look all that good offensively in the series, period.
They split against the Cubs, I think?
No, they took 3. Because they
did take 3, okay.
Yeah. But, I mean, they scored all their runs with 2 outs in the 4th inning yesterday because Sampson got himself in trouble.
Didn't we just see Logan Webb get his ass kicked by the Dodgers like 2 weeks ago?
Yeah, him and Rodon and whoever else they pitched.
Rodon, though, hell of a final act there if the Giants decide to ship him off. That was a hell of a performance. But I like Webb a lot as a pitcher. I think he's very good. But when it comes to price, I got to like the Dodgers. They just swept this team a week and a half ago. And am I really supposed to overreact to the Giants getting swept? They got swept by Arizona and then responded by winning 3 of 4 against the Cubs. Like,
yeah, and Chicago wasn't really bringing out the all-star lineup when you got P.J. Higgins and David Boat.
Didn't the Dodgers just tie the franchise record for most wins in a month?
Mm-hmm.
So I'll take the team that's hotter than arguably any team that they've had in franchise history for a month. I'll take the Dodgers to get the job done.
Yeah, I mean, you can say that the Giants might have an edge on the mound with Webb over Andrew Heaney because, you know, Heaney's eventually going to regress to what we're used to seeing.
As a Yankees fan, I have nothing kind to say about Heaney, but he's another one of those pitchers like Sonny Gray. He just showed up, he was terrible at the Yankees, and then he left again, he was good. I don't really know why, but that's just how it worked out.
But, I mean, even if you give Webb the advantage in the mound game here, the Dodgers' offense is a hell of a lot better than the Giants.
Yep. Definitely true.
And then we got the Padres and the Rockies. I thought about this one. I didn't really want to put it up there because I don't like the number being minus 200, but that's actually the lowest number there is on the book for them. I don't like Senzatella. I'm not really hell-bent on Mike Clevenger either, but this comes down to the fact that we know the Rockies don't do much on the road when it comes to offense. You look
it's been
in
the
there.
case for 30 years, but once again, they're terrible on the road. They're 16-30.
29th in runs per game on the road at 3.2. The only team worse, the Detroit Tigers.
And also, props to Clevenger. Came off an injury. We know that he was talented in Cleveland. He's been pretty good. His record is not amazing. He's 2-3, but he's got a 3.38 ERA, so he's been solid.
Yeah, and I think the big thing is, can Clevenger get back to the stuff he had when he was in Cleveland, when he could strike out double-digit guys on a whim?
I'm just saying, so far this season, even without peak stuff, he's managed to be pretty good.
Yeah, he's been decent. I won't take that away from him. You look at Senzatella, you know, he's 3-5. His ERA is almost 5. He gives up a lot of hits.
Mm-hmm.
And his whip is 174. Even playing in San Diego in the spacious confines of Petco Park, it's hard to have any faith in a Colorado team that, like we said, doesn't score on the road. And they're second worst in runs per 9 allowed at 542, dead last in team batting average allowed. second worst in OPS allowed. And their pitching staff racks up the fewest strikeouts per game in Major League Baseball.
Well, I can tell you that Hader's not going to be there, but on the bright side, neither will Rogers. So
That's true.
You know,
So, oh God, I wonder who's going to pitch to close that out.
somebody better than Rogers.
Well, that's again,
So
that's
there he
setting
goes.
a very high bar.
It's addition by subtraction for the sake of this game.
Yeah, I agree. But yeah, so we'll move on to 4 for the show. There's the Mets, because I didn't want to put the Mets up top and go, whoa, well, look, you're taking the Mets. What a surprise. Well,
Back in the Reds. Look at you.
Here's a clue. Would you take Patrick Corbin over Max Scherzer?
No.
There you go.
Are we playing a video game, or we're talking about real life?
Would you take Patrick Corbin in a video game over Max Scherzer?
No, I'm saying Corbin might be better than Scherzer at like FIFA or something, like if they were playing the games. But no, for the sake of baseball, I'll take Scherzer.
Yeah, and Tim mentioned earlier that
I actually like the alternative run line in that game too. I think the Mets win that game by 4-5. I mean, Corbin's off the shortest outing of his career.
Yeah, now watch. This will be Corbin when he suddenly returns to 2019 World Series form.
I don't know if that matters, though, because we know the Nationals bullpen's going to get him killed anyway.
That's true.
So,
Scott, BJ's asking you if you like the Padres.
The Padres, I feel like I kind of have to like, just because of the fact that Clevenger's been pretty good. We know Colorado's awful on the road. Senzatella on the road has been a disaster. 6.57 ERA. Yeah, it's pretty tough to go wrong with the Padres, but they're also minus 200. So maybe you can consider a run line play there, which is kind of tempting. But I think my favorite play on the card is going to be pretty obvious. I like either the Mets or I like Houston. I mean, I feel like both those are kind of slam dunk spots.
Yeah, basically, when you get right down to it.
But I think the Mets beat the Nationals by like 5 runs tonight. I think they're just going to kill them.
Yeah, I'm going to take the Reds over the Marlins. I really wanted to go with the Hunter Green strikeout prop, but they didn't post it up because of the fact that Miami was still debating who they were going to start. Apparently, it's going to be Jesus Luzardo.
Welcome back.
Yeah, another guy who hasn't pitched in a friggin' eternity.
Yeah, I faded that guy for about 90% of last year. He killed me in the back 10%, but I made a fortune in the first 90.
But yeah, I think the Reds, we just watched Miami get swept by the Mets at home. They saw their best 2 starters lose.
Yeah, the Mets even got to Alcantara.
Yeah, that game was a high-scoring game too, because it was 4-4 in the 3rd inning or something like that. I was like, what the hell is this?
All I know is you're up 3-0 and you got Alcantara on the mound. You think you're good, and the lead lasted less than half an inning.
Kind of like McClanahan yesterday, because he was down 3-0 in a hurry.
Yeah.
Then I was like, what the hell is this crap?
Tampa, I'm just not in on that team. And I wanted to make a case. I know they traded for Peralta. I'm not going to go down a Tampa rabbit hole, but even with McClanahan starting, the offense is brutal.
Yeah.
So I have a hard time backing Tampa most of the time nowadays. But I like Cincinnati today to pivot back because the Reds killed me on Saturday. Kramer I'm out on. I was hoping he'd give me one more good outing. He did not. But Cincinnati at home, we know they can hit, and we know Miami can't. That's kind of the handicap, isn't it?
Yeah, that's basically why I went with Cincinnati. The Rangers over the Orioles. I can't make fun of John Gray anymore. All of a sudden, he's pitched well.
And Baltimore is starting to. I know they beat Tampa in a series, but Tampa's still in a massive slump. Can we say the Baltimores are? I can't say that they're imploding, but they're in plain terms approaching their descending. Like they're starting to descend.
Yeah, I mean, I think they peaked right before the All-Star break.
It was the winning streak. That was the peak.
Yeah. And, I think reality is going to set in. You might see them deal somebody like Trey Mancini, which, of course, would take a pretty good bat out of their lineup. They're probably a year or 2 away. And, of course, people have been saying, people have been saying that in Charm City since, the 90s.
Well, this year was pure gravy. I mean, everyone expected them to be awful. I think their win total was somewhere in the low 60s.
Yeah.
I actually like the under, so that did not go well for me. But still,
there's still 2 months left. You never know.
That's what I'm saying. But when it comes time to actually evaluate Baltimore, the front office isn't stupid. They're not going to suddenly start buying players because they think this team can contend. That's why I think anybody that bet money on the Orioles to win the American League or any of these whatever, they could have just handed me their money. No, they're not getting into the playoffs. You have 70-something games in the hardest division in the league.
Yeah.
It's not going to go well for you long term.
That's true. And finally, we talked about the White Sox and the Royals. I don't think we need to go into that again. No. Basically, the Royals are terrible.
Yeah.
And you can't have faith in them magically turning things around.
Yeah.
Lex said that Max and Corbin would both be bad at FIFA.
I think Scherzer might actually be okay just because of how competitive he is. I think he would actually, break a couple controllers and then figure it out. So, I don't know. But I think you can make an argument.
And BJ said he doesn't think Luis Garcia can be trusted.
I can understand why you might not like Garcia, but you got to look at who's pitching on the other side. Even if you don't trust Garcia, I trust him a lot more than current form Eovaldi.
Or any form Eovaldi.
I actually like good Eovaldi more than good Luis Garcia because I'm kind of biased. I just like Eovaldi as a pitcher, but he's been terrible recently. I'm going to keep fading his terrible form.
Do you think he bounces back at any point, or do you think it's a lost cause for this year?
Eovaldi?
Yeah.
I think it's a lost cause for the entire Red Sox team, and I think at some point you might see Boston shut him down. I got to assume there's some underlying arm issue, don't you think?
You'd have to think it's something, a shoulder issue or some sort of thing that's slowing him down.
It's one thing if you're going to be struggling and you're not a great pitcher, but Eovaldi's been good for a couple of years, and he's been basically useless for a month. There has to be something going on with that arm.
True. And Erica said she found one over the Yankees and Mariners going over the number.
I think she was being sarcastic towards me because I proceeded to just talk about zero overs entirely for this show. So
well, I mean, totals are so fickle because we talked about that before when we had that matchup where it was who pitched for the Reds in that game with the Orioles, or was it?
No, it was. I ended up having it was Molly against Kramer for me.
Oh, but remember we had that game that ended up 2-1, and we thought it was going to be an over machine. Was that Watkins and?
Because Watkins we liked. I forgot who it was.
Did Spencer Howard pitch in that game?
Lodolo?
Oh,
no,
Lodolo.
Howard was pitching against the Angels and kicked my ass.
Okay, I just remember a few weeks ago we had that game that ended up it was 2-1, and we thought it was going to go over.
Yeah, Eric, I'm just going to look quickly for totals because you were asking for overs. I know we talked about how Miami can't score. You're going to give me a total of 8 with Hunter Green and Luzardo. I mean, I just mentioned before you could fade pitchers who are just coming off the IL. Luzardo might take some time to get going, and I am not a Hunter Green guy. I think
I would have liked the strikeout prop if it was up.
I was going to say you might like the strikeout prop, but he also gives up a fair share of home runs.
Oh yeah,
I don't mind the over 8 in that Reds Miami game because I also don't like either bullpen. So that would be my first one I'd look at. And for another one, I can understand why you'd pick the Yankees because Herman was decent last time out, but you can't really trust him. I think I'm looking at Cleveland for my second over.
Yeah, especially since what we said about Quantrill.
You can make an argument for Boston and Houston, but Boston with the current lineup and with the people that might be sitting or just for the sake of being injured, I don't know if I like that. So I think I'll look at the over in the Arizona game. Go with a fade for Davies. We mentioned how Quantrill's been mediocre, but he gets a bunch of run support. So I'm going to lean to the Reds over, and I'll lean to the Guardians over.
Yeah, Bill said the Red Sox game over well because I saw that total actually went down.
Yeah.
To 7.5.
I didn't realize it was at 7.5. That's almost an autoplay with Eovaldi, isn't it?
You would think so. I mean, it says it opened at 8. Let's see who's got it now. 7.5 at DraftKings and BetMGM and FanDuel.
Yeah, so I don't mind the over there too, Bill.
Yeah, that's going at minus 115 at over 7.5.
Yeah.
So not bad money there. And shot in the dark, and we know who's to blame. Mm-hmm. Look, there's Jose Ramirez, Scott. We put him back up there.
Well, he should be. because Eovaldi's pitching.
Yeah. No. Not Eovaldi. Davies.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, you're right. Sorry. Ramirez just faced off against Eovaldi
Right.
last week. My bad.
And can you go wrong with Aaron Judge?
No. So yeah, Ramirez is going to be against Davies. I still like the matchup, obviously. Judge against
Marco
Marco. I mean,
Gonzalez.
he's against a lefty who doesn't throw fast. Judge, we know, has been a home run machine. So yeah, I don't mind that.
And look, I put not one but two Astros in the lineup. Got Altuve, who's somehow at plus 130, and Alvarez, who's at plus 105.
Yeah. Alvarez at plus money against Eovaldi is a joke. You can argue Altuve because he doesn't hit for much power, but he can.
He's homered 3 times against Eovaldi in his career.
I was going to say, if you want to go based on his overall stature, you don't think of him as being a home run guy, but he has some success against Eovaldi.
Yeah, including one earlier this season. Pete Alonso. Can we argue with the polar bear?
No, he's against lefty Corbin, so I don't mind it.
I look for the Mets to go over 5.5 runs. Can you see Washington slowing them down at all?
Only if Corbin randomly pitches well, but for the most part, no. You're getting a guaranteed 9 at-bats, right? They're on the road.
Yes.
So there you go.
Speaking of the Mets, like Tim was saying earlier, they said that Jacob deGrom would get one more minor league start, so he's going to start against Washington tomorrow.
I was going to say, haven't we heard deGrom getting extra minor league starts each of the last 3 minor league starts?
Yeah. Sadly, Washington is going to counter with Corey Abbott as their starting pitcher.
As far as I know, Josh Bell and Soto are still on the team for now, so we'll see. I don't expect Bell to be on the team tomorrow.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
I think Soto will be. I think Soto's such a big piece, they're going to wait till the offseason.
That's true, because you can see who's got what after free agency and everything else, and resetting the the luxury tax number and everything.
Yeah, plus you also get more teams interested because you rebuild the false hope of teams that have already died in the first half of the season.
This is a good point. I look for the Mariners and Yankees to go over the total, contrary to what you were thinking. I can't trust Herman, and Marco gives up a crap load of runs sometimes.
Well, Erica brought it up. I didn't really have a stance on the over-under, but I know Erica did mention that she liked the over in that Yankees game.
Yeah, I just, you look at Gonzalez, and like you said, he doesn't throw hard. I mean, his strikeout prop is 2.5.
That's rough.
I mean, you can get it at 3.5 at FanDuel, and if he goes over 3.5, it's plus money.
For the record, I would take the over.
I mean, I'm looking here. He gave up. He gave up in his last 7 starts 2, 2, 2, 3, and then his last 3 starts were 5, 5, and 2.
Yep.
And 2 of those starts were against Texas.
Mm-hmm.
With that said, I don't trust Herman at all, so I'm going to take the Mariners at plus money. Because after seeing Clay Holmes yesterday, and you don't have Michael King.
I'm assuming Holmes isn't even available today, right? Because in addition to blowing the save, he threw a bunch of pitches.
Yeah, I wouldn't think he'd be available. So who would that put in the late innings for New York? You know their bullpen a lot better than I do, being up there most of the time.
I was going to say Marinaccio pitched yesterday. They still got Peralta. They still have Chapman. So some type of combination there.
Yeah. So you're telling me you want to rely on Aroldis Chapman?
Chapman's actually been okay for the last couple of outings, but no, I still don't trust him.
Yeah. Yesterday they threw. Well, Peralta threw 11 pitches yesterday.
I didn't even. Yeah, but I'm saying Peralta can go again. He's a guy who can go.
True. Yeah. Him, Marinaccio, Lutke, Lois. How do you pronounce that one? Loisiga.
Loizaga.
Okay. Holmes and Albert Abreu all threw yesterday. So
you want Abreu in the game today because Abreu sucks. Abreu's just not very good, if I'm being honest.
Only two
classic good stuff, bad pitcher.
The only 2 guys that didn't pitch were Chapman and Clark Schmidt, who threw 52 pitches on Saturday.
Yeah, and Schmidt's actually been okay, but yeah, it seems like Chapman's kind of automatically gonna pitch in this game. I mean, they don't have enough arms.
Maybe they'll see if they can get Scott Efros a uniform before game time.
I'm trying to think of any other options. I'm not sure if Weber's on the actual active roster. I know they brought Green back. I don't know if they're on the major league roster or not, but I guess those, if they are, count as bullpen arms.
Let's see. According to Baseball Reference, Weber is listed as being in the minors.
Okay, he is in the minors. Okay.
Yeah, let me check on Green.
Because I know they just got him back, and Weber was very good when he was in the majors, so I figured they would have just brought him straight up to the regular club.
Oh, this shows that Green's still on the 60-day.
Really? They just signed him. Did he get hurt?
Are you talking about Chad Green?
No, I'm talking about Shane Green.
Oh, Shane. Oh, okay, Shane Green. I didn't realize.
No, I know Chad Green's out for the year. I should have been more clear. Green with an E at the end.
Yeah, that's my. No, they have him listed as being in the minors too.
Okay, so they're both in the minors, I guess. Okay, never mind.
Yeah, I see. It says they re-signed them the other day. Okay, yeah.
That's why I thought they would immediately get promoted, but they did not.
Yeah, so they're down in Scranton WB along with Richard Rodriguez.
Okay, cool.
Boy.
John, if you want to do same game parlays, some books have them. If you want to do it locally, I don't think any local books have ever allowed you to do same game parlays. But yeah, I know. For example, FanDuel does, DraftKings does, BetMGM does. The main ones nowadays pretty much all have same game parlays.
Does Caesars have them?
Caesars, I believe, does. Yes.
Okay, I knew that DraftKings and everybody else did.
Yeah.
Latif said, what do we think about the Cleveland game? We talked about it a few minutes ago. Quantrill gets a ton of run support. Davies hasn't pitched since June 25th.
And he wasn't very good in general. So
yeah, and Arizona is lousy on the road.
Yep.
So we're going to back the Guardians. Then finally, we got Max Scherzer going over 7.5 strikeouts because
of course
it's Washington.
Yeah.
And Garcia over 6.5 strikeouts. Boston has been whiffing a ton lately. And he's racked up at least 6 Ks in each of his last 5 outings going into this one.
I'll bet it if Dahlbeck's in the lineup.
So you have no faith in Bobby Dahlbeck?
No. He hits more home runs than Gallo recently, but it's kind of like watching a righty version. A lot of strikeouts with Dahlbeck.
Speaking of, have they traded him yet? Have they tried to trade him?
I don't know where, to Japan?
I heard somebody say that Milwaukee was interested.
Milwaukee was rumored, but then they blew up the team, so I don't know why Milwaukee would even bother at this point. Atlanta, I've heard,
they get a lot of wind energy out of him.
I was going to say, I heard Atlanta might be interested because Duvall's out for the year. So Atlanta's a team that could give it a run. I'm assuming Milwaukee's out because I don't know why you'd even bother trading for Gallo when you basically just admitted you're not trying to win a title this year.
Yeah, like we said at the top of the show, I don't get that either. Why would you blow up and trade your closer for a crappier closer and a bunch of crap?
But if you're asking where I think Gallo's going to go, I think he actually goes to Atlanta.
Speaking of Atlanta, say goodbye to Robinson Cano, DFA'd again today.
Also, quick shout out to, I'd say, show favorite, Austin Riley, who set the all-time record for most extra base hits in a single month in Braves history. So congratulations to him. We got a lot of good plus prices on him. Probably not anymore. You think there's any value on him to an MVP?
I mean, who are the favorites right now in the National League?
You still got Goldschmidt, of course, at the top.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, but I mean, if
they
don't go anywhere in the playoffs, do you still consider that as a factor?
Playoffs don't account for anything, and you could argue that the Brewers trading Hader's great for Goldschmidt odds because if they win the division, that means he's going to be getting constant media recognition, which might help out. But if you want to go through the other names, Machado was the guy early in the year, but then he got hurt, and I feel like most people haven't heard anything from him.
Yeah, he hasn't really done a whole lot.
No, but if you want to just go through the actual odds here, I think you make an argument for Riley because he's been great. You haven't heard much about Acuna this season, but if you want to go through the actual odds, Goldschmidt is minus 155, Austin Riley's plus 550, Freeman's 850, Betts is 12-1. I think Riley's got good value at plus 550.
I agree. I mean, he's hitting better than 300. He's got power. You know, he's got 31 doubles. He's got 29 homers. You know, he strikes out a lot, but he leads.
You don't have to worry about media coverage though, because you're the defending World Series champions.
True. He leads the league in slugging percentage and in total bases. His OPS is 161. I mean, I get that Goldschmidt, you know, he had that hot start, but he's kind of cooled off a bit. He's down to 329.
Yeah, of
course.
Riley's
out homering him.
I was going to say, Goldschmidt should easily still be the favorite at minus money. I'm not saying he shouldn't be, but plus 550, I think Riley closes the season well below 550.
I would say so. What do you think it would end up at? Plus 2 something, maybe 2.25?
Yeah, 2.25, 2.5, if I had to guess. Unless Goldschmidt gets injured. If he gets injured, then Riley's just going to arguably be favored. And of course, vice versa. If Riley gets hurt, Goldschmidt's going to be like minus 400.
Yeah, at least.
Yep.
But I agree. I think there is some value there if somebody were to jump on it, unlike, say, Steam's Tony Gonsolin Cy Young ticket.
I mean, I can't roast him for taking a guy who started the year 12-0.
True.
But
he's kind of come back to reality.
So far, I mean, I've found some decent value on the awards throughout the year. I liked Verlander. I liked Alcantara at plus money. Back when I think Burns was favored at that point, I think. But, yeah, I mean, once again, you're going to lose a decent amount of future bets because of the volatility involved. But if you can beat serious line moves and put yourself in a good position to potentially cash one decent plus money bet, you're probably set for the whole season.
Yep.
So,
and just a couple more trade notes. Reports say that the A's are getting closer to trading Frankie Montas.
Yankees.
Reports say the Twins believe that they're wrapping up a trade, sending him somewhere else.
Damn it. Okay.
So the Twins are not in the running, more than likely. The Yankees are willing to include Oswald Peraza in a Montas deal. How do you feel about that?
I actually like Peraza a lot, but I don't know where he's going to play. Volpe's the guy. And you don't want to get rid of Torres. I would. I don't like Torres at all. So I actually wouldn't mind using.
You may not like him, but I liked him when we dealt him to get Chapman back in 2016.
Well, that worked out for you. I'm just saying that the Yankees.
It worked out, but not because of Chapman, because Chapman put that game 7 in extra innings.
The Yankees are in a tricky spot because on one hand, you want to compete for a title because you're the Yankees. On the other hand, if you want the reinforcements, you're probably going to have to overpay. And I like Peraza a lot. I think he's very, very good. But if you want to win a title, you might need to give up, you might need to acquire Montas. So you're in a tough spot.
And Latif also asked, what do you think about the Yankees-Mariners first 5 total? It's at 5.5.
I think I'm going to lean to the over there. I don't really trust either pitcher. You mentioned Gonzalez. The velocity's not there. It never has been. He's a lefty as well. Yankees have a lot of powerful righty bats. I have to lean to the over because the Yankees have a lot of home run power, and Herman's not very good.
He is no bueno.
Yep, no bueno. All right. Anyway, you got anything else you want to say, or should we just wrap it up?
No, we wrap it up. Nathan said he hit quad jacks on video poker yesterday.
Nice. Congrats on the 200.
Can't go wrong with basically free money.
Yep. Either way, thanks for, of course, stopping by and watching the show with us. We'll be back tomorrow.
Don't forget to always smash the like button.
Smash the like button, the subscribe button, all that stuff, the fun stuff. I will actually not be here tomorrow. I'm going to be flying back, but Jim's going to be taking the wheel for me. I'll be back on Wednesday. Chris will be back tomorrow. But until then, good luck to all of you and all your bets. Bye, everyone.